So guys, let's give Aaron Meager a nice loud round of applause. Come on up, Aaron. They got taller high chairs here. Okay, cool. So Aaron, thank you for being part of our keynote session today.
Well, thanks for having me.
Yeah, I know we've been trying to set this up now for about a year, just scheduling-wise. So I want to just get a little backstory out of the way so we know, kind of where you're from. And you grew up in Baltimore, is that correct?
I did.
And you and I were talking. Can you talk about just the entrepreneurial roots that you came from? Your grandfather was an entrepreneur.
Yeah, so when I grew up outside of Baltimore, and my grandfather had a janitorial service. And so when I was a little kid, I'd be running around banks after they were closed, and he'd be buffing the marble floors. And so I just remember from a very young age that he would take us, and we participated in that. Probably some underage child labor there. But,
but you remember cleaning, helping polish floors and just watching him work really hard.
Yeah, and it was, a very small business. I think he had himself and maybe 5 other employees total, but he was able to sell it when he was ready to retire, and then he took care of my grandmother and all of his kids well afterwards, and then they retired down here. So his company took care of him and is still taking care of her today. So
and that was a great model for you to see as a kid, right?
Yeah, he was my role model.
So then you went to North Carolina State, correct?
I did, yeah, Wolfpack. So I moved down to Florida when I was in high school, and I didn't really like Florida. I was a little shocked by the culture down here. And so I went back up north. I didn't want to go all the way back to Maryland, so I went and settled in North Carolina, and I got my degree in business and marketing education. And so when I graduated, I could teach 6th through 12th grade in any business course.
So then you came back to Florida, because obviously you love Florida. So.
Well, my grandfather was now in Florida, and he was starting to get sick, and my mom and my sisters and my grandma and everyone was down here, so I wanted to be close to them, so I did come back.
So what did you do straight out of college? What was the job that you landed?
I went to work for Osceola High School, which is in Pinellas County, and I became a high school business teacher there. And I taught mainly 12th graders, actually. I was like 4 years older than them. I had to lie and tell them that I was much older than them and their siblings. And they didn't believe me. But I had an entrepreneurship class. I had an accounting class, public speaking, Microsoft Office, all of your Word, Excel, Outlook courses. So that's what I did immediately.
And you were hip because you were teaching all these business classes and a lot of entrepreneur classes. What happened? What did the students tell you as because you were very passionate about these classes?
So I'm trying not to talk with my hands, but when I was teaching, I'd be like,
"Oh, you can talk.
You can do this," and I would be very extremely passionate about being 18 is a cool age because you have everything in front of you. You have nothing to lose. Like, what path are you going to take? Are you going to go to school? Are you going to start a job? Are you going to, start something yourself? So I would be very encouraging of these students to do those different things. And you don't have to go to college. You can, start a job, or you can learn a skill, or you can go to school and then do something. So I was doing this, and they were looking at me going, like, why are you here trying to push us to do all this stuff? Why aren't you doing what you're kind of teaching us to do? And so that was definitely something where I was like, I know, but at that time I didn't know like what business I wanted to do, and I didn't want to get into something not be fully behind whatever I was going to start.
So where did you get your inspiration? How did the whole coconut thing come about?
So I've always tried to kind of eat healthy, live an active lifestyle, but it wasn't until there was an article in our paper at the time. This woman, she was a doctor, and her husband was diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease, and you guys probably have read it or heard about it because she's done several follow-ups as well. So when her husband was diagnosed, he was on medications for Alzheimer's, but she researched ways to help him, and she found that coconut oil, when your body consumes it, turns into ketones, and your brain can use that for energy. So they did a 2-week trial on only putting it in his oatmeal every morning. That's the only thing they changed. And before he could draw a clock like maybe a two-year-old would, so there were no hands, there was no numbers, no definition. After just literally 2 weeks taking coconut oil every morning, it was like a 5-year-old. So it had definition, it had the numbers, it had everything there. So not a cure by any means, but a quality way of life. And I was amazed. And this is 7 years ago now. So I was amazed that something you could eat could have a dramatic impact on your health immediately. And I did more research, and I found that it was helping with metabolism. It was helping improve good cholesterol levels, plus everything that it does for the brain. And at that point, I was like hooked. Like, we should all be using this stuff. Why aren't we?
And what year was this? Around 2000?
2008, 2009, because I started at the very end of 2009.
So then you left your job, right?
I did leave my job. Mm-hmm.
To start a coconut business. So you had a home-based business. So talk about, what was the transition like from going to a teacher? How did you figure out, because coconuts, they're all over the world. Where do you get them? How did all that come to be?
My mom thought I was crazy. She's like, you're going to do what? But I did. I worked from my house for the first 10 months, and I knew at this point, like, I could fall back on my teaching certificate and just go back to teaching again. So what I needed to find out is, okay, I have this idea for coconut oil. There was not that many brands in the marketplace at the time. There was maybe 2. And they weren't saying like where they were getting the product from or the quality of the product or anything like that. So I started doing research. You can only get coconut oil from outside of the country. So I had to start by figuring out, how do I import a food product, an organic food product, into the U.S. So I figured out how to import it. Then I had to figure out, where do you get it bottled? Where do you, how do I get a logo? How do I trademark the logo? How do I get a label with all the regulation in the food industry? How do you get that set up? So that whole process took me 10 months until I had a product. And then I was like, okay, well, where am I going to sell this now? I have like 4,000 cases of coconut oil packed, and I need to sell it. So I went to a trade show in Boston, and that was my very first selling experience.
And I have this is the one out west, but it's the Natural Products Expo East was the one in Boston, right?
Right. So there, west is always in March, and east is in September. So I went to
talk about this
east.
trade show so people know kind of what it's about and why it's the trade show to be at if you're in the natural products business. And
it's actually like grown so much from just natural products, because natural products are integrated now in like the general aisles of every grocery store. But West had 77,000 people at the show this year. There are over 6,000 booths or vendors. Beyond that, you have food brokers, you have media, you have category managers or food buyers. Everybody kind of converges on Anaheim, California, or Disneyland for this show. And really, it is the food industry. I mean, what's happening in our industry is going, the natural organic is the future of the industry. You see the large guys come in, and when I say large guys, you see Conagra, Kellogg's, Kraft, coming to this show to find the next business that they are going to buy. And that's how they're innovating the whole food. Everything that you eat today is probably coming up through here. So the West is the biggest natural show of the year, but the East is pretty strong as well. I think 30,000 in the East, and that's held in Baltimore every year, so I get to go home and have some crabs. So what happened when you went up to the East show? Yeah. Did you have a break? Did people come up to you? What did you get out of your first show? So the night before the show, I was like in TJ Maxx getting like a basket or something to like put on the table, and I saw that there was food in TJ Maxx. I was like, oh, that's gross. Who like eats or buys food from TJ Maxx? So tell us what happened after that. So the next 3 days at this show in Boston, I had 3 separate TJ Maxx buyers come up to me and go, we want to put your food in TJ Maxx. And I'm like, oh. Do you really remember going to TJ? No, this is a true story. Yeah, it's not like, right. It really legitimately happened. Yeah. And so at that point, they were revamping their whole store, and they were making it more of like a scavenger hunt with food. And so they were bringing that in. They did a huge transition right around this time. And so I remember after the show, we were walking through Boston Common, and I was like, I don't know if I want to sell my baby to TJ Maxx, like as my first one, because the thing was like discount. Are you lessening your brand? My brand that hasn't even gotten off the floor. I have 4,000 cases already packed and ready to sell. And so my boyfriend and my sister were like, you idiot. Do it. Yeah. So I did it. And that ended up being one of the best marketing things that I got paid for, because we ended up going national distribution with them, 9 distribution centers across the country.
How many stores?
They actually probably have 1,500 stores.
Wow.
They have a lot of stores. They do.
So you wound up in most of them, I'm assuming?
We wound up in all of them.
All 1,500 from the first? Wow.
Yeah, that's right. I'm a little competitive. So we ended up in all of them. And what it did is that
that's your first sale?
That was my first sale.
Wasn't like the local supermarket down here?
No, I had no sales going to Boston.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So what happened is a person would find the coconut oil. They'd find one or two in each individual store, and then they would call us and they go, I love this. Where can I find it at my local grocer? I'm like, well, we're not in your local grocer yet. But that was an awesome marketing thing for us that has worked out, and we still do business with them today. We do business with them and Ross and
we'll get into
all the discount, all the... Yeah, Ross now, I mean, yeah.
So what happened with so now let's backtrack. So you came back. Where did you go next? Didn't you have to now get the local?
So now I had to go, and I took my case of coconut oil, and there was like 12 units in a case, and I had to go to all the natural food stores around town, so like Chuck's and Rolling Oats and all of them. And I went in and I knocked, and I was like, will you take my little case of coconut oil, please? And I was excited when someone agreed to buy 12 units of the coconut oil. It was like a $30 sale or something. I mean, it was kind of crazy. But the reason why I had to do that and go around to every single natural food retailer is that in the food business, you need to have food distributors to get to the big boys. But the food distributors won't take you until you have distribution in the stores. Well, the stores don't want you until you're in the food distributor. Well, what are you supposed to do?
So it's a catch-22.
Yeah. So I ended up with 150 store. I mean, I would go to Miami. I'd go to Orlando.
So you went to individual stores and got into 150
to,
stores yourself. Wow.
Yep. Yeah. So I had that, and I had TJ Maxx, and that was the start of. So luckily, TJ Maxx afforded me some of that volume to help me meet minimums, because I still needed to get minimums on like production runs. So that really helped me out there.
So talk about when like in the food industry, a lot of us kind of know that we go shopping for food, but what's the next step? Do you need a distributor to kind of go through the steps to become successful? So you got the little shops.
So I got
you got lucky
shops.
that you got TJ Maxx right out the gate.
Right.
So now what's the next step?
So I was still going. I went to another trade show, and they wouldn't. The distributors were still kind of like looking down their nose at me, like, yeah, okay. So my girlfriend, who I had now solicited to come work for me, we went up to one of the distributors, and we're like, he wasn't our category manager, but we harassed him until he took our papers, and he's like, okay, I'll take them back to Chicago and give them to who you need to speak to. And luckily it was a woman named Maria, and she brought me up to Chicago, and she loved everything we were doing. We were doing everything just a little bit differently with coconut oil, the way that we package it, our products. And so she really took a leap of faith on me, and she said that she was going to bring in all of the products for national distribution in their food distributor.
So that's the company, right? KeHE?
KeHE.
KeHE.
Yeah.
So they have distribution centers all over the North America.
Yes.
So then what happens next? You have to ship to them, and then they sell it for you? It's not that easy, huh?
Yeah. For you. So, okay. That's the idea. You hope they have salespeople that they pay. So what happens is part of the national distribution is I was able to get a sales broker. So you also need like food brokers which help you in sales. So I was able to negotiate with Natural Specialty Sales, which is a division of Acosta Sales, to be a national broker for me, because I just had this exclusive national contract with KeHE, which doesn't usually happen. The way it usually happens is, because I'm from Florida, I would get a small regional Florida broker, and I'd have, some small regional distributor, and I'd have like a foothold in Florida, and I'd build that out, and then I'd go to Georgia. But coconut oil was just on this cusp of breaking out, and so
they knew that they could
right.
distribute it nationally.
Yeah, and Acosta was trying to look for a way to kind of work with KeHE. I was like, you can use me as that, thing to get you guys closer together. So we ended up with a national contract with them. So then what we had to do is, by this time I I hired a VP of sales who was in the natural food industry, and we had to put together a sales presentation, and then we had to use our broker Acosta with some help from Cahey to try to go through to grocery retailers to get an appointment to get approved to go on the shelf. So those were the next steps. So I had a pretty extensive travel schedule for 2 years.
Do you remember your first presentation, and what was that like?
I don't remember the first presentation, but I remember the first big win. We were up in Grand Rapids, Michigan, calling on Meijer grocery stores. I know they have like 220 stores. They look like a Walmart, but they're like very high end, and they move a ton of volume. And the buyer, usually they don't say. This is what happens. You go in and you've traveled a day or a day and a half for a 20-minute or a 30-minute meeting, and they don't talk to you. That's usually how it happens. And then you don't know the result until 2 weeks later, 2 months later. That's kind of how it goes. But for some reason, this buyer was talking to us that day, and he liked everything we had to say, and he approved 3 products, and he told me in the meeting that he approved 3 products, and he's going to go through and he's going to put them in. And so I'm like, okay, cool as a cucumber. Went outside, got in the car with my broker, and was like, yes, that was awesome. So because that was like our first big on the shelf, like legitimate to me company that took our products.
So shortly after that, talk about the different companies that you kind of do business with now that are on your list.
Yeah, so now, I mean, basically any grocery retailer throughout the U.S., H-E-B in Texas, Stop and Shop, Giant, Publix. So Publix, they gave me a hard time. They made me go in there 3 times. First, they said no. Then I went in and they gave me 3 stores. They gave me the 3 Greenwise stores, which is the one here in Hyde Park, and then there was 2 down in like the Palm Beach, Miami area, and I had to prove myself in 3 stores. And then they made me come back again. And when they say come back again, this is a year between every comeback meeting.
Wow.
And then I came back again, and they gave me all the stores.
How many is all public stores?
They have now, I think, 1,200.
1,200
around
stores,
1,200
wow.
stores. Yeah. So
that's pretty amazing.
yeah. So I mean, so that kind of that progression happens with all of the grocery retailers.
So I have a slide of Publix, but also of you on Dr. Oz. So you've done quite a bit of media. So talk about how you've been able to get yourself on different media channels, and if you could tell us the impact of like being on Dr. Oz, what happened, and then just some of the local channels you've been on too.
Yeah. So we don't pay for any of our media. There's a great resource called Haro. It's Haro. I suggest you sign up. It's a free email that you get. You can get it like 3 times a day or once a day or something like that. And basically it is every single reporter who needs a lead for their story, and they can't reach everybody. And so a lot of what we've gotten through Haro. Actually, Dr. Oz was through Haro, I believe.
And that stands for Help a Reporter Out.
Yes, yep. And we've gotten, I've been on Daytime here, which goes to like 150 media markets. Dr. Oz, we've been on QVC. We've gotten things in like national magazines. I mean, we've done a lot of this stuff. I have a part-time marketing person, and she just, she works it through these avenues and these channels. But a lot of what we try to do is that education too about coconut oil. So that's what we started like in the beginning, and that's kind of my education background again, is I'm educating people about coconut oil. So even if like Dr. Oz wasn't a branded thing, you can see they have like a fake brand on there. So it wasn't a branded piece, but for me, I can still say, hey, I'm Dr. Oz, educating him about coconut oil, which then overall helps my entire industry with coconut oil, and then eventually it's going to start trickling back down to my brand. So some of this stuff we've done is non-branded, but a lot of this stuff is branded as well.
Out of curiosity, would they have done branded if you paid? Did they offer you that?
Oz is funny. I think he does some paid
some not,
and some not.
We had some keynotes say that sometimes you have to pay $500,000 to have your product on something like that.
That seems a little high, but I don't know.
Yeah.
Like I said, we haven't paid for stuff.
We got Charlie Belcher, right?
Oh, yeah, Charlie's been out a few times. So I've done the whole kind of circuit here too. But anything we can do to get on TV, get in a magazine, that just again helps the brand.
So we have now what are we looking at in that picture? Are those drums of oil, and how
That's
big
all
are those?
coconut oil. So the ones closest here, those are totes of coconut oil. They're bag in a box. Those are 1,000 liters. Each single one is 1,000 liters. And then the ones behind it, that's coconut oil in 55-gallon drums. And there's 4 drums on a pallet. And so that is just a fraction of our coconut oil, of our inventory that we carry.
So when you started in 09?
09.
Yeah, it was just you in your car getting things, obviously storing stuff at the house. Where have you come now? Like, how many people do you have, and where do you house all this stuff, all the coconut oil?
So for the longest time, my first employee was one of my really good friends. I brought her on, and then I had the VP of sales, and then I had like one administrative person. So there was probably about 4 of us. My office was just north of the airport off of Benjamin Road, so we had 1,200 square feet. We thought that we were going to get it produced and distribute from the back of the office. It's flex space. Quickly realized that we couldn't because all of our co-packing was done in California, so it was just kind of a marketing office here. Then, if you've ever worked with a co-packer, they suck. They're going
I've never heard anyone compliment a co-packer long term.
Yeah.
They always have an issue.
And, I understand, but they will mess up your product, and they'll be like, well, if you want the rest of your product we didn't mess up, you need to pay us, to come get everything out. It just can become a very hard situation, especially when you have customers, high-demand customers like Meyer, for instance, who you're trying to service them with high service levels, and if your co-packer doesn't produce your product, what do? You're, for lack of a better term, you're a marketing company at that point. So I knew that I wanted to bring everything in-house. It took a while to do that, and I kind of was going back and forth about, do I do that or not, because that's kind of a different business when you actually are manufacturing. So we finally got the level of sales that I felt would justify bringing it in-house. So we got one little line, by one little line, it has like 2 filler heads on it. And I was like, we're going to bring it in, and we're just going to run our product, and we'll run some local stuff, because there's a bunch of barbecue sauces and jams and other people locally that need services, and that's what we'll do to kind of do our thing. So we moved into 10,000 square feet. We're still in that Benjamin Johns Road, that industrial area right north of the airport. So we did that 2014, October 2014. So really recently. I
remember visiting you, and you're telling me, hey, it's a lot of space, but we're going to make it work, and you're really excited. I was excited for you.
Yes.
So what happened since then?
So then Publix called me on my cell phone. And I remember I was driving up the Veterans, and I don't know how they got I forget. But anyway, they called me, and they're like, so we see what's going on in coconut oil. It's going really well. We don't have a private label coconut oil yet. They had no coconut oil under the Publix brand. They're like, they knew that I just started, and they called me in like October, and when I was putting in this line, I hadn't even really moved into this place yet. They're like, do you want to pack for us? And I'm like, yeah, I do. They're like, okay, well, you still need to go through all of the things that they put you through. So I had to fill out all this paperwork. I had to do all these things. I had to get my facility audited. And then you become like a semi-finalist, and then you get down to the final quotations. You've now given them like 18 quotations on this product, and they made me come into Lakeland, and there was like 9 of them, and Publix really don't talk. So
So you're just sitting there.
So I'm in there with like my VP of sales and my ops person, and it was an hour appointment with 9 of them, and I talked for 20 minutes straight, and nobody interrupted me or said one word. And I'm like, at that point, I'm done. I've gone through the deck. Like, that's it. Like, I don't know. And they were like, well, if nobody has any objections, we're ready to award you the business. And I'm like, oh.
What a great thing to be said.
Yeah.
Why couldn't they say that up front?
They had to make me work for it. But so they awarded us four items of private label for Publix. So this was before December of 2014. So really my first customers now in private, in this new facility that you see there was Publix was one of the very first ones.
So just to clarify that, you have your line that we see here, and then next to it you'll have like the Publix brand.
Yes.
And you create that. You're the one that
Yes.
packages it. They contracted you.
Yes.
So how much more volume does a Publix brand item move than,
It moves a ton more.
10 more. It's
It
just
moves
people
a ton
buying the
more.
Publix brand.
Yeah. So actually, also at that time, I went to Expo East again, and this girl was like walking around, and she's like, "You do coconut oil?" I'm like, "Yeah." And I'm like, "Oh, who are you with?" She was with Aldi, and so if you've heard of Aldi, they called me a week before Christmas and said, "Can you get some coconut oil to us next week?" Like, it's the holiday. So we actually picked up Publix and Aldi as our first two private labels, and we shipped Aldi before we ever shipped Publix.
Wow.
So volume-wise, it is huge. Our coconut oil is organic and fair trade certified and awesome, like the best quality and tasting. They do not have fair trade certified oil. There is a difference between the two, but they still have high quality, awesome oil. So there is a slight difference, but they do move a lot more.
You actually brought something about fair trade that we're going to show. Can you just talk about why it's important to, when you see products like yours and it says fair trade certified, why people might want to give that a shot over something else?
Yeah. So kind of like I went back to before about how you can't get coconut oil in the U.S. Like I wish that you could. We source from the South Pacific. So we source from 4 countries: India, Sri Lanka, Indonesia, and the Philippines. And I'm actually about to go over there the first week of May, so I'm really excited about that trip coming up. But because of that, to me, it was always really important to know where your product is coming from and who's touching it and making it and who's profiting off of it and who's not profiting off of it. So we started with this company called Serendipal in Sri Lanka, and they are a fair trade company. And that means that all of the workers in the entire supply chain are paid higher wages, they have better working conditions, they have access to health care, and then they have educational programs that go back into the community. And all of this is audited by third-party companies. The ones that audit us are out of Switzerland, and they go and they audit them. And so you can see the difference, and this video actually shows basically over the last 10 years, I've been working with them now for 6 or 7 years, but over the last 10 years, what the difference that these premiums, I pay a premium on top of all of my invoices to go directly to this fair trade project. And it goes, and it's just amazing. Like, I cried the first time I saw the video. But
so this is a really great video. So we're going to play it. Anthony, if you can make sure the audio is on it. We're good?
Is Dr. Bronner's sister company the first project worldwide to produce organic and fair trade coconut oil?
Serendipal grew out of a tsunami relief project.
Across the region, 80,000 people are dead. At least 22,000 of them were killed here in Sri Lanka.
The waves started at speeds of as much as 500 miles an hour. Nothing and no one can stand against them.
In late 2004, the tsunami hit Sri Lanka. 30,000 lives were lost.
One of our main dudes, Garo Lasone, set up this nonprofit that he called Second Aid. I was like, Garo, we're already wanting to go fair trade, and this would be kind of cool to pivot off this tsunami relief work and set up a fair trade operation in Sri Lanka. And that was kind of the genesis of Serendipal. Everything we buy and consume has a human component to it. Some human labor went into that thing you're buying. And was that labor respected or was it exploited?
My grandfather was Dr. Bronner, who basically built this company on
they're part
the
investors in
principle
the project
of
in
uniting
Sri
the human
Lanka.
race. Our mission statement is not very narrow. We've tried to take my grandfather's philosophy, which he wrote on the bottle, and apply it to our spheres of influence, how we treat our employees, how we treat the earth from which we get our materials, and how we treat the workers who make those materials. That is why we've gone fair trade. That is why we've gone organic. That all culminates in fair trade coconut oil.
What we wanted was to have a chain where you knew where the materials came from and that they would be produced under socially responsible and environmentally sustainable conditions.
Garo asked me, do you think we can do organic and fair trade here? I said, tell me what you want. I'll make some inquiries and I'll tell you if we can do it.
None of us had any experience with making coconut oil before. Neither had we done organic and fair trade. So then we started looking for partners and facilities.
Fair trade has many facets. To the customer, it's a reliable source, fair pricing and fair terms. To the employee, it's good working conditions, regular work, fair wages, health and safety. To the farmer, it's fair payment terms, fair price for their nuts and transparency.
වශයෙන් පොල්ටි පොල් ආයතනය නිසා අද මේ වයඹ පළාතේම පොල්ට්‍රි කුණේ පොල් මිල ඉත මිල ඉහළ ගිහිල්ලා සාමාන්‍යයෙන් මුදලාලිලාට පුළුවන් අවශ්‍ය වෙලාවට මිල උගුව පහළ දාන්න. දැන් අද නමුත් සෙරණි පොල් ආයතනය නිසා මේ පොල් වගාකරුවන්ට ඉතාම හොඳ මිලක් ලැබිලා තියෙනවා.
ඉතින් මමත් කැමති වුණා එහෙම ආයතනයක් අපි ලංකාවේ මේ තියෙන එක ගැන. ඒ කියන්නේ කාබනිකව රසායනික කිසිම දෙයක්.
We call it here the tree of life. Essentially, nothing from this coconut tree is wasted. We are recycling the coconut shell from the coconuts we use every day. These shells go to fire our boiler, which gives us the energy that is needed for the process inside. Over here, we are de-shelling the coconut. We have a doctor visiting twice a week, and we have a physiotherapist visiting twice a week. We have full-time nurse all the time. We are going to our nut yard where we store coconuts. These huskers have 21 days paid leave, medical privilege leave. They're entitled to bonus. Last year we paid 3 months bonus. Treat everybody in my supply chain with fairness. Grower, worker, hatcheter, factory owner, factory workers, even my customers. That is my idea of fair trade.
I think it's just good management of your operation with long-term relationships to your suppliers, plus strong involvement in community development. And that's where the fair trade premium comes in.
We charge a fixed amount from all of our buyers. It's credited into the fair trade fund. We decided that part of that fund will be distributed to all the people who are part of our value chain, starting from the farmer to the employee to the community. We use the fair trade funds to subsidize the fertilizer that we give the farmers. They get a natural input to improve their yields. It is through these initiatives like soil fertility, interest-free loans that the farmers benefit from through the Fair Trade Fund.
To us, the employees really are one of our main stakeholder groups. One of our key beneficiaries were our workers.
මම සෙලින්ඩි පොල්ලේ වැඩ කරන්නේ සේවකයෙක් විදිහට. එතන පිළිසිදු කරනවා සේවකව අර පොල්ලේ ලිගාන අයගේ ෆොටෝ එකේ ඉන්නේ මගේ මහත්තයා. අවුරුදු 25ක් ඉතරේ මහත්තයා නැති වෙලා. අවුරුදු 15ක් දැන්. ඒ නිසා අපි ඒකේ වැඩ කරලා අපි ගෙවල් දොරවල් හදා ගන්නවා, දරුවෝ සැක බලා ගන්නවා. ඒක අපට ලොකු ශක්තිය. උදව් වෙලා ළමයි පාසල් යන්න පොත්පත් ටික දෙනවා. The
school books, the clothing, the shoes, everything has to be spent by the parents. That is a big chunk of their income. We analyzed that and we decided that is one way how our employees would benefit as one of the stakeholders of the Fair Trade Premium. If you're an employee of Serenity Pools, it's automatically taken care of.
As we started building up the Fair Trade Fund and we received quite a bit of money, we then started thinking of, well, what other benefits can you provide to your workers? Oftentimes they don't have indoor plumbing, there's no indoor toilet facilities, the houses are usually very, very modest.
Every 2 years, we give employees a grant for housing improvements. We defined who the value chain was. So for us, it was the farmer as one community, employees as another community, and the community that we operate in, the coconut triangle.
That fund is used for community development projects focusing on key issues such as healthcare, education, environmental improvements, vocational training, infrastructure, electricity connection to remote villages that hadn't been connected previously.
We have done at least 650 projects, spent over 1.2 million the past 8 years. I think we have made a change.
I am proud to say we are probably the leading exporter in the world of organic and fair trade VCO.
If Dr. Bronner's did not dictate the fact that they needed fair trade or organic, we wouldn't have gone down this road.
They dropped the idea into our head. then they give us all the support to go ahead and do it.
I never expected this project to go to this level. I never expected this project to make attitude changes in people to the level that it has. I never expected this project to be the change agent it is now.
Santa Paula right now is at like 2,600 metric ton output a year, and it's going to double in the next 2 years. And it was incredibly difficult. Now we've done it, we've inspired other people to also build these and created a demand and brought it into other commodities. Fair trade is not about coffee and cocoa, it's about everything.
Pretty amazing, huh?
Gero is the German scientist that you saw. He's awesome. I mean, it was kind of his baby that got that going. And then Sonali, the young woman, she really runs that operation with her father, Gordon, who was the other older gentleman on the tape. So they are all.
So you're going to get to go visit them.
Yeah, they come over here, so I have regular interaction and stuff with them. But yeah, we're going, so it's really exciting.
That's an extremely powerful. It paints a picture of what fair trade does for a community. So pretty amazing. So anything that you have, your brand is fair trade, right?
Yes.
So how important is it to have the fair trade organic? What are some of the insignias that you have on your product that's really important for the consumer?
Yeah, I mean, that kind of covers it. It's the fair trade, it's organic product. We also have kosher and vegetarian on there. So it's a great product to use instead of butter or other oils. If you have any allergies, our spray has no soy in it, so we've taken that out. So we just try to do everything, like I said, a little bit better or a little bit different than everybody else. We package in amber glass jars, which nobody else does as well.
So how much does this retail for right here?
At Publix, I think you can get it for around $9.99, $10.
Okay. So you are one of the fastest growing companies, Inc. 5000. Were you invited to go out to one of their conferences? Is that correct?
Yeah, we applied for the Inc. 5000, the fastest growing companies, last year, and we made it in at 485 out of 5,000.
Wow. So your revenues are in what range, so people know kind of built up from zero to?
Yeah, we should close in at 10 million this year.
Isn't that amazing? From out of your car, yeah. So talk about this picture, because this group is very familiar with Marcus Lemonis, the prophet. What's going on with you and Marcus up on stage at the Inc. 500?
I was trying to convince him to come to Tampa. So at the Inc. 5000 conference, it was in Orlando, and so everyone who makes the list can go. And so we went, and Marcus was the keynote speaker at the event. And it was, 5,000 people or more in the audience, and he's going around trying to get to know you, what moves you, wants to know your deepest, darkest secrets and stuff like that. And so I was thinking, hey, everyone in this room really just wants to know one thing from Marcus, can you invest in my company? That's what we really want to know. So he did a little question and answer session towards the end, and I got to ask the last question. I was like, hey, or I was like, how do you invest in companies without us going on the show, right? You've all seen the Prophet.
You don't necessarily want to be on the show. But
right, but I mean, if you are still investing in companies, how do we do that? So we kind of had a little dialogue going, and then I made the proposition. I was like, come tonight to my business. It's an hour away. And he pulled me up on stage, and he says, okay, you have 30 seconds to convince the audience of why I should come to your business. And so I tried, convincing him a little bit, and I was listing the ways you can use coconut oil, and I was like, you can use it for cooking and baking and hair care and skincare and sexual lube. And he's like, what? This is a family thing. But it got his attention, and he was like, okay. So anyway, long story short, he pulled my card out of his pocket. Somebody had given it to him too. So it was like this weird serendipitous thing that and so he's like, well, you should apply for my show. And I'm like, okay. So he had my card and everything. So that's kind of the connection that we had up on stage at the Inc. conference.
Awesome. And so he's developing a new show or something?
Yeah, so he's actually developing a new show called The Partner, and I just found out I'm semi-finalist to
What's
go
the
on
concept
show.
so we know? Because none of us
Okay,
have
so the
heard-
concept, you guys have seen The Prophet, where he goes and he helps like all of us like in our business. And
he buys a chunk and he partners
right, and
up,
he's
right?
100% in charge. So the concept of The Partner is, I think it's kind of like his apprentice show. So he's going to all of these companies across the country, and so he's looking for the right partner to help him manage all of these companies that he's gone and invested in. So yeah, I mean, it's reality TV too at the end of the day, but so that's brand new, and so you'll probably see that in the next year or so. So I have to get all my submissions in by Wednesday.
So good luck with that. So what's the future of your line? What is something that you're going to bring out pretty soon?
We actually have new products under the Kelpo brand that combine ghee or clarified butter with coconut oil. So if you've heard of bulletproof coffee, you mix it in your coffee in the morning and it gives your brain all those healthy energy fats. So we've done a 50-50 blend, and it's sold in packets like this, and then it's also sold in jars. So those are our new things.
So what's the difference? Because I found this on. So what's the difference from like this kind of stuff?
Well, there's a whole debate around GMOs,
Yeah.
genetically modified foods. And so a lot of these, like the country crocks and the parquets, are just vegetable oils that are kind of all blended together. And then some of these other butters are using, I guess, GMO feeding the cows, and that's how the butter becomes GMO. So we're using clarified butter, which is butter where you take the proteins out. So if you're lactose intolerant, you can use a clarified butter because it has no lactose and casein in it.
Okay. All right, so that's the whole product line. So what are your goals of growing the business over the next 3 years? What are you looking to, go to or put out there?
So my goal is $30 million in 3 years. We have just taken on another 24,000 square feet of warehousing. So now we're in 34,000 square feet at our facility. 60% of our business is private label now, compared to about 40% of branded. So in addition to the two retailers that we talked about before, I mean, we do private label for Fresh Market, we do it for Food Lion in Hannaford, we do it for Harris Teeter, we do it for UNFI, which is a distributor. I mean, that portion of our business continues to grow. So that's what come to our manufacturing facility, we have, about 10 to 15 people producing every 4 days out of the week in our facility.
Now, do you think that part of the success is because you spotted this opportunity a little bit before pretty much everybody jumped on, so you were able to get these contracts?
Yeah, I definitely believe timing is a huge thing in everything that we do. Like you guys too, if you're right at the right time, then that helps. So coconut oil was at the right time. There's a lot of education. There's a lot of research that is coming out about it. We definitely still need more. We have all these anecdotal stories where, like, it helped my grandfather. It, did this for me. It helped my cholesterol levels. But we need a lot more research-backed studies from doctors and researchers to continue the movement, like we've seen in the olive oil industry, because that was coconut oil is in its infancy. But if you think back 20 or 30 years, nobody was using olive oil before, and now olive oil is a huge industry. Coconut oil will get there. So we're going to continue with the coconut oil. We're also going to continue with the private labeling. Private labeling is over $1 billion industry. So as you go to Publix, and everyone trusts Publix brand. Why wouldn't you trust their label and their brand? So there's a lot of opportunities there for us to go into other categories. And continue the private label and really be, and I think that eventually is where we're going to go more so into the private label, where we'll be 80-20 with the branded, because there's so much there, and we're a free-from facility, which means we're free from the top 7 allergens. We're an organic facility, we're a kosher certified facility, and we're an SQF level 3 facility, which is a safe quality foods facility. So most packers, they already started 30 years ago. So they're trying to clean up their facilities to meet all this new regulation coming out in the food industry, and we're already there because we only started 18 months ago. So that is kind of an advantage for us to be able to continue to grow and capture sales very quickly.
Last question, and I've asked you this. So this is the signature line that you get to sell at a premium, and my perception was the Publix, when you're doing their private label lines, the profits are very small. But can you explain the difference between having to put this on the shelves compared to just selling it to Publix, the difference for you as a manufacturer?
It is expensive. So to get on most shelves at any retailer, you have to pay for this space. So they call it slotting fees, where you literally have to write them a check and give them cash. Or they call it free fills or free goods, where you have to give them the first 600 cases that you ship to them is for free.
Wow.
So then any discount that you guys take advantage of at the store, 50 cents off, it's not Publix giving you that 50 cents. It's me giving you that 50 cents. So if you go in and you buy the product 50 cents off, I have to then cut 50 cents to Publix. Any coupon that you go and you use, whether it's through Publix or through a manufacturer, the manufacturer pays for it. So even though you start out with higher margins on your product line, you are paying the retailer those things. You're paying your distributor a portion of money. You're paying your broker a percentage. And then after all of that, you get what you can make off of the product. So the difference with the private label is Aldi will come, they'll take a truckload of product. That's literally what we send them, a truckload of product. They back it up, we load them on. 10 days later, I get a check in the mail for the full value of the 20 pallets that I just sent them. It is done. That transaction is over.
Any returns, they take care of it?
There is no chargebacks. There is no returns. There's no spoilage. There's no marketing fee. There's no nothing. You get your check. You take it to the bank.
So that's cleaner money than having to do,
and it's a volume business. So you look to do high volume with them.
Right, and they sell the volume because they have the trusted name.
Right. Mm-hmm. And Aldi's really good at cutting out all the middle people. Like if you think Walmart is, Aldi's an amazing company.
Okay, we have a couple questions. I'll ask them and then
Sure.
we'll wrap up. What's the shelf life of the product?
It's from when they make it in Sri Lanka, it's 2 years. So you're usually about 18 months by the time you buy it at the store.
Okay, and then Frank Matola, this is one I'm sure people were thinking. Is there a limited quantity of coconuts worldwide that will impact the production or the price?
The good thing about coconuts is you can harvest them all year round. You don't harm or cut down the trees like you do with palm oil. So the South Pacific is mainly coconut oil. South America is mainly where they harvest coconut water, even though you could use any coconut for that. So there's not an issue with that. There is an issue. There is refined coconut oil. This is all unrefined. We didn't really touch on that. But the refined coconut oil can be affected a little bit because it's used for biofuels. And right now, El Nino impacted the palm oil market. So the price of refined coconut oil has now, the price is jumping weekly, right? It's increasing weekly on it. So that plays a role in it. Tsunamis, you saw at the beginning of the video, there was the devastating one in 2004, but then in 2012, 13, actually, I think it was 13, there was a devastating tsunami in the Philippines that drove pricing up. So it's a commodity-based pricing. You have to be on top of your thing you're buying and those types of things.
Someone asks, are there other retailers other than Aldi that are amazing to work with, that they run a very tight business?
Actually, Publix is awesome too. They are really good. They're very respectful. They're very old school, but they are good to work with. I wouldn't say that the retailers are so bad. The distributors are kind of they're trying to make money in there, and they make things very blurry so they can try to make the most money that they possibly can off of you.
And the last thing that people need to know is when it's olive oil or coconut oil, you got to be careful of the smoke point, right? Because then it becomes toxic, or it changes the breakdown of the chemistry. Can you just talk about that?
Yeah. Any oil that you use, if you take it above its smoke point, it'll start to break down. And the point that it smokes or breaks down, that's where there's research that says it could cause carcinogenics. So coconut oil actually...
If you smoke the oil, then that's not a good place to be. For those of you that like to smoke your oil, it's a carcinogenic. Well, not smoke it like that. Come on now. There's a...
Yeah, so
like a bag of popcorn smoking off the thing.
I still have olive oil at my house. What I do with olive oil is I tend to cook the things that are hotter in the coconut oil. Refined coconut oil can go up to about 450 or 500 degrees. And then I finish with olive oils, because if you're used to the olive oil taste, you can finish with it.
Sure.
The coconut oil is slightly sweet, but it shouldn't taste like coconuts when you use it. And then I still use the olive oil for my salads. Coconut oil turns solid at 76 degrees and below, so if you put it in cold greens, it's not really going to mix up, it's going to clump on you. So I keep olive oil in my house, and those are really kind of the two that I keep on hand.
So when I started, I asked who knows about coconuts. Who here knows a lot about coconuts and coconut oil? I would say everybody. Erin, I want to thank you for coming out and sharing your story. It's an amazing success story right here in Tampa Bay, and I watched you do it. I visited your center, and then to hear that you got Publix and all these things, it's just amazing to see the success in our community. Thank you for coming out and sharing the story with your fellow business owners here in Tampa. Let's give Erin a round of applause. This is awesome stuff.